Today I'm sharing my first birth story. And honestly, it wasn't the beautiful experience I had imagined. What started as a healthy pregnancy turned into an emergency C section, infection, breathing complications, and one of the hardest postpartum recoveries I could have imagined. I'm sharing this because birth stories aren't always picture perfect. And if another mom has ever gone through something similar, I just want you to know that you're not alone. So, my pregnancy itself actually went really well. I had a huge belly, gained about 60 pounds, but I didn't develop diabetes or preeclampsia. Everything looked healthy. But one thing I never prepared myself mentally was for the possibility of a C-section. I've always been terrified of surgery, so my mind, I just believed I would give birth naturally. I ended up reaching 41 weeks pregnant and still had no real contractions, only Braxton Hicks, because nothing was happening. Well, my doctor decided to induce me. That started a 24-hour process of trying everything. They gave me Pitocin. They tried the balloon method to get me to 4 centimeters. They even broke my water, but my body just wouldn't progress. And eventually, the doctor said the words I didn't want to hear. We needed to do an emergency C-section. I immediately started to cry because it wasn't the way I had imagined giving birth. My heart was racing, and when they were prepping me for surgery, my body started shaking. You know, the shakes that women get uncontrollably. I was shaking actually so much that the anesthesiologist told me that once the baby was out, they would put me completely to sleep because my body wouldn't calm down. I remember hearing my baby cry and then was put to sleep. The next thing I remember was struggling to open my eyes while they were wheeling me into my room. The nurses were trying to wake me up so I could obviously hold my baby, but I was so drugged that everything is honestly a blur. And that really was hard for me emotionally because I didn't get that moment I had always imagined of holding my baby for the first time. You know, that skin to skin and connection that many moms talk about. I didn't get to feel that. Yet, when I finally woke up more fully, that's when the pain started. And then the nurses would come in and press on my stomach to check on my uterus. Honestly, it felt like torture. Um, the moms that have ever gone through this know what I'm talking about. But less than 24 hours later, they wanted me to get up and walk. But my belly was still so swollen that I felt like my insides would fall out. After 3 days, they removed my stitches and discharged me. But leaving the hospital wasn't the end of my experience. It was only the beginning. Once I got home, every day I started feeling worse instead of better. My husband actually got a call from a job he had applied for months before, and they wanted him to start immediately, so he didn't get that paternity leave. So my only help was my mom. By Wednesday, I was crying from the pain, and I didn't even want to carry my baby because it made the pain worse. My mom and my husband were both worried that I was getting postpartum depression. My mom decided something wasn't right and told me to book an appointment with my OB. So during the appointment with my OB even took a phone call while I was explaining my symptoms. He looked at my incision and said he didn't see anything wrong with it and prescribed me Narco, which is a stronger pain medication. For a moment, the medication did help, but a couple of days later, something terrifying happened. I suddenly felt something wet and thought maybe I had peed myself. When I checked, there was like this yellowish brown fluid coming from my incision. I couldn't really see it that good because my stomach was swollen. So I called my mom and she saw it too. And immediately, well, she called an ambulance. My newborn baby had to stay behind with my mom and my sister while I was rushed back to the hospital. So, day one at the hospital, they gave me antibiotics. Day two, just more antibiotics. So, by day three, I was starting to have trouble breathing. I couldn't lay flat on my back. And every time I tried to take a full breath, I felt like stabbing pain on my lung. So I was like breathing like in short breaths. My sister became really upset and demanded that they called my OB immediately. When she had come to visit me at the hospital, she saw that I was just getting worse instead of getting better. When my OB arrived, he asked what happened, and then he got upset with the nurses and asked why my wound hadn't been cleaned. He asked for a scalpel. And you could have just imagined my face right there. I grabbed his hand and asked if he was about to cut me open. I begged him to put me to sleep first. He said he needed to do it quickly. So basically, yeah, he cut open my incision right there in that room. Not the whole way, just like around this much. I can honestly say that that was the worst pain I have ever experienced. I really feel like I was tortured alive. They ended up putting me on a wound vacuum machine that had like this sponge thing, and they placed it inside of my incision to remove any infection, and it actually did help me get better. The fever stopped. Later, they did some scans to see why was I having trouble breathing, and they discovered that I had an air embolism, which explains why I couldn't breathe. I had to do some breathing exercises, and slowly, after about a week, I would say, kind of improved a bit. I still had to go home and take that machine, continue with those exercises until it completely got better. I went home with the wound vacuum machine still attached to me though. And when the nurse, they told me that this nurse was gonna go and go to my home to be cleaning me once a week, I think. And he was gonna teach my husband if there was any need to clean me before her visit. She would explain that. So when the nurse first went to go visit me, she tried removing the sponge later. My skin had already started healing around it. So pulling it out was incredibly painful. After that, they switched me to packing the wound instead with a gauze, and they taught my husband how to be cleaning it every single day. Honestly, that was the best choice because it was extremely painful removing that sponge out of my wound. Because as you know, when your wound starts healing, your skin grows back, right? So skin was growing on the attaching to the sponge thing. So that's what made it like incredibly painful as well. I would feel like if they're cutting me open again. So, yeah, I did not want that thing back inside of me. And thankfully, the wound vacuum the whole week I did have it. It had already sucked out all the bad stuff that I had developed, so there was no more need to put another one, but just to be doing the packing with the gauze, which my husband would do every day, and the way we would take it off, so that, because also the gauze as well, like when we would put it on the wound, if it would get dry, it would kind of like get also stuck to my skin. So we discovered that by wetting the gauze, that would help getting it off from my skin without it hurting. So I would say it took about 3 weeks before I started feeling somewhat normal again. I didn't understand why things happened the way they did, but looking back, I truly believe God carried me through every moment of it. I really hope my story did not scare you, because that is not the point of it. My point is that not every birth story is perfect, and that is totally okay. It doesn't mean that um it went terribly wrong and you'll never want to have kids anymore. Like, yes, you will. You will want to still have kids. I have 2 other little babies. Um, and they were C-sections. And I think that now that with my first experience, I was able to be more prepared for my other C-section. So that really helped for things to be more smooth and different. Don't be discouraged, and that God always has everything in control. It is definitely not an easy position to be in, but it doesn't mean that you will not be connected to your child. I have a good relationship with my oldest. I love him so much. I never stopped loving him, even though, like, my poor baby, he really did went through a lot as well, because it's not easy to be a baby that's used to being in the womb, hearing you all the time, and suddenly, like, not knowing nothing about you for a whole week. He would struggle to sleep. He would cry so much, I guess, that he missed me, because there were times my mom, she would FaceTime me, and just by hearing my voice, he would calm down. So definitely babies do feel the separation. And besides that, since I told you guys that I let my milk supply dry, I did not know at the time, but my son, he had a dairy allergy. So we were going through different milks with him, and he was suffering a lot from the colic and from changing all those milks, and me not knowing that he was allergic. And he also developed eczema. Um, yeah, my firstborn has gone through so much, and I feel so much for him. He is such a special boy. For me, it's already been almost 8 years since this story. I have never shared it in my actual social media. I do share it with moms that know me closely. But I did feel like I like sharing it for those moms that maybe right now, like, they went through something traumatizing, and they feel like kind of a little bit let down, and you're suffering and it hurts so much. It doesn't mean you're gonna be stuck there forever. And if I could go back and talk to that 23-year-old me that had a baby, I honestly would tell her that I'm so sorry that you had to go through that, and you'll still feel proud of having that your baby. No, there's nothing in this world that could ever make you regret having that baby. Doesn't matter how much pain or um how much we go through while birth. It's amazing that our brains, our heads, like, eventually it will get over it, and you'll want to have more children. So yeah, like, I hope this resonates with someone, it encourages someone. And if you feel comfortable sharing your birth story, I love to hear it in the comments. And if you're a mom going through postpartum recovery right now, I'm sending you so much love. God bless you guys.